I think he can fill us in on a lot of information. Yeah. No, of course. Yeah. But I was just saying we don't have enough here tonight. Rick's going to provide us with a lot. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to call the Facilities and Transportation Subcommittee meeting to order, or whatever it's called that we're going to do. Would the clerk take the roll, please?
Chairperson Doherty.
Here?
Mr. Dakota.
Here.
Mr. Dillon.
Here.
3 present.
I'd like to also mention that School Committee member Connie Martin is here, Dr. Guillory is here, Dr. Hall is here, and Rick Underwood. So the first item on the agenda is to update the priority list of facility upgrades that we identified in March, and we reported out to the whole school committee afterwards. So just if Mr. Underwood could give us an update of what's been accomplished out of that priority list that we came up with the city, and where we stand on some of these items, what we need to be doing next. Thank you very much, Mr. Underwood.
So we've continued to get quotes and prices on some of the bigger projects, and what we've found is those projects are going to take a little bit longer than originally anticipated, especially with the asphalt pavements at the schools. But we're going to be continuing forward that. There's been a little delay in getting the RFPs together, just to the how busy the city is and everything that's going on that. But to date, we've worked on getting the window listed in all the different schools. All the broken windows have been listed and given to the city of Lowell. So we'll be talking to different vendors and getting those prices on there. We've finished the Robinson School bathrooms renovations. What's left to do over there is to paint them. We've currently got prices today for the renovations and upgrades to the auditoriums and the STEM, the Bartlett School, and the what's the other one we're doing? I forget which one the other one. Sorry, I drew a blank there. So those prices are coming in. We've also I'm just looking at this here. We've got prices in for the water heaters at the Pine Arts. Those will be in, and we're expecting those to take place come summertime. We've got the Wayne flooring in the theater being done, same thing. After summer gets out, we'll be working on that. Big project, that floor. I don't know if you've ever been in that school at the auditorium. There's beautiful auditorium, but it's been without carpet for several years. So that's going to be a nice project over there. And so everything is listed here. What I'd rather do is take some questions if you have any questions on the report. Most of these things are being handled by the City of Lowell and DPW with RFPs and vendors. So we're continuing to get prices and continue through that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on this report.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Mr. Dillon?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Underwood, are we still looking at this list and think that everything is, doable still? We're on track. There's nothing that, it could be a stumbling block that we could, everything still looks good in your opinion?
I think everything looks good. We're still, like I said, we're still waiting on the asphalt prices to come in. What we've found is it's going to be a little bit more detailed than we originally thought. Stormwater drains, stormwater management, raising these the manhole covers. So it's going to take a bit longer, but we still anticipate that being done. What we're hoping is if we don't get that done, we'll get some type of agreement that if this money runs low, that the city will continue with those projects, and those talks are continuing. What we've also found is some of the projects that we are starting to get prices for are coming in a little bit lower. For instance, the fire panels at the Stockalosa, we allocated $47,000 for that. That price came in at $19,000. So what we're hoping to do is to take that same vendor and then send them to one of the other schools to do another fire panel. But before we start adding projects, we want to make sure that we can address all the ones that we've also already approved.
Yeah, and that was, I only brought it up just because, I wasn't sure if maybe we get into a project and, if you're reconsidering in any way, I don't know.
No.
Any decision making we can help.
Yeah. No, we haven't reconsidered anything. We seem like we're on track for everything.
Good.
A couple have come in lower, a couple have come in higher. You notice the Pine Arts, we allocated $20,000 for the water heater. That came in at $33,000.
Yeah, some of them a little high, some of them a little low. Does the money kind of look like it's on track though?
Right.
In general?
It kind of works out because you look down a little bit further, you'll see the Wayne School, we allocated $40,000 for that. The price from state contractors, $30,996. So we're hoping, what comes in high will offset what comes in low. And the only one I'm worried about is the pavement. It was a big project, something we've been looking at for a long time, wanting to get done. So we'll be keeping our eye on that and hoping that that'll be able to get done.
And is that time related?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The other
Thank you.
thing in terms of the difference in prices, when you look at the green algae, we thought that was going to be $75,000 and it's only $16,900. Is that accurate, or is there more work that has yet to be done? That seems like a big jump.
We anticipated that to be a lot more expensive. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. There's another play top exactly like that at the McAvenue School. So we're hoping to take that same vendor, send them over there and take a look at that. But again, we don't want to start spending money in adding projects until we address the ones that have already been approved by this committee. But we are keeping that open. And we'll continue to update if we feel the need to add anything or slash something else. We'll give weekly updates to Jim Hall, and I'm sure he'll pass those on to you guys.
Mr. Dakota?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there a, I don't want to say a deadline or anything like that, but on a calendar, basically, are we looking to try to get most of these projects done before the start of school in September?
Well, to tell you the truth, Mr. Dakota, we're looking for some clarification on that also. It was my understanding that we would be able to procure the purchase orders before the end of the fiscal year, but then prolong the invoices. That still has to be looked at. I believe the city feels like once that money ends or it gets recaptured, that they're going to continue with those projects, and that's what we want to make sure. If that money is going to be recaptured by the city, we're hoping that we can get them to agree to continue with those projects and not divert that money elsewhere, if that's the case.
So what do you think we need to do to get that kind of clarification? Because that does seem an important point. We don't want to start projects and then not see them through to completion.
Well, this actually just came up yesterday in conversation, Monday in conversation with our weekly city and school. We kind of had a difference of, I won't say opinion, but of understanding of what the parameters of that spending. So the plan is to speak with Billy Joe and get some clarification on that.
Any other questions or comments in terms of this priority list of infrastructure improvements? No? So I guess, Mr. Dillon?
Yeah, thank you. No, I just wanted to say thanks to Mr. Underwood. Let's keep going. This is good. I mean, the cooperation between the city, our side, and everything that Rick is doing is positive stuff, and we got a lot of catching up to do. So this is great work.
I agree. The city has been fantastic right now. And the things we've been able to get done in the communications and meeting every week has just been a big difference. And so great thanks to Christine Clancy updating this. She's been incredibly busy. The city has a lot of other projects going on. She took the time to spend a couple of hours with us going over this again this week. So thank you to her.
Well, I think that the weekly meetings are definitely needed and making a difference. And I just, in my contact with the city manager, I think the next step would be to get the subcommittees together with the city and really look at how we're going to move forward. As my colleagues know, we have a great deal of ESSER money coming and a great deal of need around facilities. I'm wondering if I could ask Dr. Hall, where are we in terms of these projects? I think we did an initial vote of 1.6 million, right? So are we tracking to stay under that, or what's the plan if we go over it? Because I think there are additional funds if we needed to. I personally would be open to moving more money over for these priority projects, but I just want to understand where we are at this stage with the cost factors.
Sure, my understanding, and I think Mr. Underwood highlighted, is we're still waiting for the paving to come back, which will have a big sway on whether it's over or under, but presently it appears we're tracking under. But as we went over, we want to make sure that we can finish the projects that the committee sanctioned prior to coming back to you. However, we have identified some excellent play sets for your consideration as well, and if you wanted to move forward on those, we would need a larger allocation. It appeared that it may be close to $300,000 to address those three particular schools that the subcommittee was interested in, the Bartlett, STEM, and Cardinal, depending upon the size of the play set.
I think that is a great segue into our second item on the agenda. If there's no more discussion about number one, could we go to, motion number two did have a number, part of this was the collaborative piece, which I think we will have to put that off till we get the subcommittees together and get the city at the table with us. Because while I do appreciate that the city is working with school staff and you're working together, I think as the body making decisions about the funds, need to, and with the council, also need to be having those conversations so we all understand what's the commitment, in terms of going forward and the timelines and all that. So if we could, I don't know if Mr. Underwood want to talk to us about number two. This one's really near and dear to my heart, the outdoor structures.
So there's no reason why, and we visited the sites today, as you had mentioned, there's no reason why we can't move forward with that. The space is available. I believe the city is on board with helping in whatever they can do help us out with the project. I know this, Dr. Hall and Dr. Boyd are enthusiastic about it. So I think, if we allocate the funds, we could get these probably done by the end of the summer. They seem to go pretty, in my experience doing the one at the Moody School, once we get the funding in place, it moves pretty quick.
So that would mean a vote of the entire school committee to allocate $300,000 to get these projects done? Because I don't think that was in the original priority list, right?
Correct.
It is not a part of that priority list. I don't think, again, that funding would have to have a discussion with Dr. Boyd and Dr. Hall on the funding. I know the plan is to go forward. It's not going to have anything to do with this 1.6. We also, the city is in the process of putting an RFP together to take an in-depth look at our HVAC systems and, district-wide, much like we did in 2018, but using some of this ESSER money to really attack, what we know was already big projects. So we don't anticipate this $1.6 million project changing or being diverted to anything. I'm expecting that the playground money to come from different funds, and then the HVAC project being funded by the ESSER money coming in.
Thank you. I was just going to ask about, are we talking about allocating funds from this type of project because the playgrounds are here now and we can order them now and put them in now, and moving something back? Or are we going to try to find other funds? Yeah. I mean, this is separate stuff, right? Okay, I didn't know if that's what we're talking about here, is maybe voting to put some of this money to the playgrounds now.
We're already pretty strapped with this
Yeah.
1.6.
No, absolutely.
Especially when we don't know the paving costs yet.
Yep.
So I would be looking to pull that money from some of the other savings that we've got.
Yep.
We
Well,
had
that's an,
$2.5 million.
Excuse me, sorry.
Put aside for professional development. And I know Ms. Turner is thinking there's going to be additional savings in terms of this year
Mm-hmm.
that we could put this towards, but
depending on how things work out here, I mean, we could, if we get these projects done for, if we keep getting a lot of projects done for smaller amounts than we thought, then maybe we have some left over. But again, there's plenty on this list that isn't included on this particular version that can fit right in behind it. So I was just looking for clarification on what we were talking about for money. Thank you.
Mr. Dakota.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Has there been any effort between the school department and the city to come up with a regular maintenance schedule going forward so that we don't run into these same issues going forward?
We did. I'm sorry. We met with Johnson Controls right before our Monday weekly meeting this week. Johnson Control has done some work in the city before to our controls, so they have experience and some knowledge of the inner workings of it. So we had them come in and took a look at just one school as a pilot program. So we took them to the Sullivan School. They looked at an in-depth look at the univentilators, the actuators, the dampers, the HVAC units, and they put a service agreement together for non-mechanical items, but mostly controls, the dampers and stuff, that really what we have the most trouble with controlling our heat. It was very expensive. It was very expensive. It was to the tune of $15,000 a month for 10 years for a maintenance agreement, and that was maintaining, buying and maintaining the components. But when you turn that out for 1 year, it comes out to a little over $620,000 in service agreement for one thing, and it's not addressing the actual components. It's controlling. So we did look at it. Our plan now is to possibly take a look at some of the smaller companies that may not, really branch out and look at some of the more local companies to see if we can shave a little bit off that. But even that would all have to go out for bid and process an RFP. And that type of stuff takes a while, just to write the scope. It's very technical, and unfortunately, the city, the school has anybody that really is a grant writer or a scope writer that has that has to take on these projects. So I know the city of Lowell was talking about possibly finding someone that could, really do that job.
So are you talking about that, they're talking about hiring someone that would be part of our staff?
Well, there's been talk about somebody hiring one, to oversee the different projects if we did get into a maintenance agreement, and really just oversee all of that. But, that's it.
I think that's an excellent question, Mr. Dakota. And if I understood you correctly, you said $15,000 a month for one school?
For one school.
that's
and then it gradually
$180,000 a
works
year.
its way up over the 10 years as the equipment starts to age out. So that they would start to, so on the 5th year, it may be $15,000 a month per year month. And that's what they were looking at was they would replace all the components that had to do with univentilators. So it would be the actuators, not the dampers, but the actuators that open up the dampers, the control valves, replace all that, start from scratch, new energy management system, and then it would be $14,000 a month for that part of it. And then, like I said, over the course of the next 10 years, it would gradually increase as the product started to age out and they were starting to replace it. But those are big numbers, especially when you have 30 schools.
Could we possibly, since that is such a that sounds like so staggering a number to me.
It was more than the energy consumption of the building.
Exactly. So do you think that it would make sense for us to put another application to the MSBA to help us do that portion of what we're looking at in terms of that heater?
Well, absolutely. And I think that is the plan, to continue to add schools to the MSBA application process moving forward. But as we found out, they moved the baseline back a little bit more, so it makes it a little bit harder and harder to get your schools on the list, simply by criteria. They moved the roofs back from 25 years to 35 years, which, took a couple of our schools out, 30 years, I'm sorry. So, again, but when they did do our last 6 schools, they did replace all the controls in some of the BMS systems in that particular school that were associated with the boilers and water heaters. So the more boilers we can get into that project, some of that stuff is covered through that. I just want to go back to the projects. I have no reason to believe that the city is not going to continue with the paving programs, though, regardless of when. I know if you've been by the Sullivan School recently, they've already done some work over there, cleaned up the parking lot, removed some of the islands and the broken curbs. So I think they're enthusiastic about this also. So no reason for me to think that they're not going to continue with this if the money runs out in time, whatever, regardless. So.
I would entertain a motion to move forward with the playgrounds and bring it before the whole committee. Would anyone like to make that motion? I'll make that motion. By Mr. Dakota, seconded by Mr. Dillon. And, that we're recommending that the school committee move forward with allocating the funds to work with the city and order and install play structures for the Bartlett, the Rogers STEM Academy, and the Cardinal O'Connell.
That's the other one I was thinking of.
It's like a moment in history. Roll call?
Chairperson Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
3 yeas, approved.
So I guess the next step would just be to try to do another subcommittee with the city to iron out whatever details as we get more updated information, to continue to try to work together, and even planning down the road as we have additional funds that we can use. And I think this is a very good use of these funds. It's going to immediately impact the lives of those children at those schools and the communities in the area. And it's not a recurring expense. We buy it, build it, and we get to enjoy it. So unless there's anything else, a motion to adjourn
Motion to adjourn.
by Mr. Dillon and Second by Mr. Dakota, seconded by Mr. Dillon. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood, for all your work, too.
You're welcome.
This is great.
Made me a little nervous sitting in this seat. Don't forget, for the Cardinal Corner, we're still gonna have to get permission from the Board of Parks to work with them to get that park on.
So I should have asked for a collaboration piece, because there are still things we need to do.
I've had a initial conversation